Tacklife sent me this jump starter of theirs. They call it a T8 model to have a look at. Firstly, it comes in this rather nice clamshell case, which I quite like. This will make a good form of storage if it's to be kept in the car, and provide some protection for it and its internal battery pack. This is the booster itself, and then a little instructions booklet. I'll show you the unit more closely in a minute, but it feels well constructed and designed. And what's interesting here is that this Tacklife unit looks a lot like a very similar unit from Anker. Now, they're not identical, but the clamshell case is just a different color, and the arrangement of the accessory bits along the side are very similar as well. So I wonder if they're internally the same, but I don't know about that for sure. Okay, on the other side are all of the bits and pieces. There's a USB cable, not required for the use of the booster itself. And here's the mains charger, which is important, of course. And then this is the other main component, the cables for connecting up to the battery. And then this is a 12-volt lighter socket if you want to power something off it. Okay, so there's an AC charger which is 100 to 240 volts universal. So with the plug adapter, you can use this worldwide. To charge it, it seems to need to be turned on, as otherwise you get nothing on the display or anything to suggest that it is in fact charging. But it may just be charging without feedback, I'm not sure. There's also a car charger provided, although it takes so long to charge that I think that the usefulness of that is limited. Anyway, that's the first thing you'd want to do, get it charged up to 100%. So this is called an 800 amp unit, which is always the peak current rating, and the cranking amps rating, so to speak, in this case is claimed 500 amps. Peak current 800 amps, and you might get that 500 amps for a few seconds. In reality, these jump starters are really battery boosters, which is to say that they're intended to be connected up in parallel with a battery, which might be flat, but will still have a little juice left in its tank. You could probably start a car in good condition directly off it, but the larger the engine and the more cranking it requires, the less I would rely on this type of gadget. Its main use really is as a stopgap for you if you manage to flatten your battery or your battery starts to give out, on courtesy of old age. Just in the course of daily driving, this will just save you some time and give you a chance to get back on track. I'll just have a little look at it now. Once you turn it on with this sliding power switch, you get the display with the battery charge state and some other less useful bits. These things always have these gimmicks like USB out for phone charging, and you also get the 12-volt lighter socket out with this one. So those might be useful to you in a pinch, but really they're by the by as far as I'm concerned. It also has an LED flashlight built into it, which I suppose might in fact be useful if you're stuck somewhere in the dark. And it also has this red, this red flashing LED built into it, which I suppose I would put under the gimmick category also. And there's this button here that looks like a power button, by the way, is what seems to action the LEDs. I don't think it does anything else. And it's slightly confusing as such, I must say. Now, talking about switches, this sliding power switch really only appears to control all of this accessory functionality, including the display. I say that because it doesn't need to be on to get 12 volts to the main output, which is presumably why the socket here is under this rubber flap and then recessed back in the way that it is. So if I get my voltmeter and stick it in there with the switch off, by the way, you can see I get 12.5 volts. I have, even with the switch off, I'm getting basically direct access to the internal battery pack. So I would say that you need to make sure that this rubber cover remains in place and in good condition, and you want to avoid, any possibility of shorting those two contacts inside. The way you use it involves these so-called smart cables, which has this additional unit integrated into it, which plugs into the power pack itself like this. Now the instructions are a little unhelpful, but basically it turns out that this unit is where the intelligence for the whole thing is really located. Now I showed you just now how there's 12 volts at the socket, even when the unit's off, which it still is. But if I measure the crocodile clips here, they're basically dead. And the reason for that is the smart controller here is waiting to see the unit connected up to a battery the right way around. So when it detects positive voltage, it'll arm itself, so to say, and the green light on the controller unit will come on, and it will work as expected. Now, if the battery is totally dead to the point it can't detect a voltage, then it'll just sit there much as it is now, disconnected and not work. So that's what this boost button is for. It doesn't boost the power or anything like that. All it actually does is override the safety features and supply 12 volts straight through. So if I push it, you can hear the relay click in, and I will now have 12 volts at the crocodile clips. So you use that if the car battery is truly dead. Now I think the instructions could be more clear on this, but anyway. And once you wait about 20 seconds, the relay clicks back off, and you're now back in the normal smart mode where we won't get any voltage. Here's how the normal mode looks with a car. All you do is connect the assembled thing up to the battery, observing the correct polarity, of course, and you'll get the green light on the smart cable unit come on. And at that point, you could leave it for 30 seconds or so to allow the car battery to soak up some current, so to say, and then try starting the engine. And once the engine's running, you should remove the booster from the system ASAP, and then set about getting your actual problem sorted before it gets any worse. On the topic of which, I have a series of videos now on looking at battery and alternator problems, working out where your electrical problem lies or what's causing your flat battery. So do have a look at them if you want to get to grips with things yourself.